We are recording.
Do we have audio? We should have heard recording forward.
Who knows?
In case they want to speak to us, maybe.
That's a good question. Do one of you on Zoom want to just say hello, make sure we can hear you?
Hi.
Okay, no audio. Give me one sec. Select a speaker, select a microphone. Oh, that's some working.
Beautiful.
Can we make it stop? That is a question. 1, 2. Yay! I'm really glad we recorded all that. Say hello again. We can hear you now, I think.
Hi. Hi.
Yay! Brilliant. Okay. I've entitled this week's session Interacting with a Digital Ecosystem, which sounds very fancy, but what I mean is what we're focusing on this week is how do you get out of Rhino and how do you get into Rhino? Because Rhino is one train station on your journey of digital success, but it's not where everything stays. And in fact, creativity generally comes from being able to quickly move around in this digital ecosystem. So if there's a piece of software that does something really cool over here and a piece of software that does something really cool over here, we should just be able to go, okay, well, I'll use that for that, I'll use this for this, and I can move between the two without too much trouble. And the biggest thing that actually we're going to start with is a bit of a challenge. You'll need a piece of paper and you'll need a pencil or a pen. And actually what we're going to talk about is getting into Rhino with what you've already been doing, which is sketches, drawing, hand sketching, modeling, anything that you've made or you've done. How do you then start doing it in Rhino, which you may have already started this week if you've been interested in it. But let's have a look at that now. So it's a question of getting into Rhino. What I want you to do, I'm going to give you 2 minutes exactly, and I'm going to put a timer on the screen, 2 minutes, to sketch a water jug in plan and section, or a watering can or something. On a piece of paper with a pen. Or a pencil, don't care. I'm just going to preempt you. The answer to any question you probably have is, it doesn't matter. Okay? So sketch me a plan and a section of some kind of water jug. I'll do it with you, and I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes. And we're going. 2 minutes are now. Remember, it's a sketch. No one cares. Mine looks more like a teapot already, which is bad news. promise you it'll be rubbish, but that's okay because you've got 5 seconds left. 3, 2, 1, and stop. Put your pens down. Grab your phone. Take a photo. One photo of your section. One photo of your plan. It's going to look something like that. And then your photos going to look something like that and that. Doesn't matter which way they are. However it comes out. Email them or WhatsApp them to yourself. You keeping up with me so far? And then you're going to want to find wherever your email is. Here they are. Very exciting. Oh, look at that. I mean, they're going to be rubbish, right? Doesn't matter. So fairly happy. Okay. Next, we're going to get them into Rhino. How do we get pictures into Rhino? Does anyone know already? You can insert. You don't insert, actually, you import. So you can import lots and lots of stuff. And you'll find a whole load of things here. The easiest way is actually even easier than that. And it is open it up in your downloads folder, click and drag. Should I do that one more time? Once you've clicked and dragged, by the way, you'll then get this thing that says image options, and it asks you whether you want a picture, a wallpaper, material, environment, or texture palette, and you want a picture.
Click picture.
You can't click picture.
No.
Is it because you took a photo with your fancy iPhone that doesn't save it in a JPEG format?
Yes.
I'd change that now before you get into the same trouble for the rest of the year. And open it up in, I think there are online tools that let you convert the file. Oh, it won't let you do two at once. You have to do one at a time. Once you've clicked it in and you said, oh, make me a picture, then it gives you a cursor that you then click and drag. And then we'll do the next one. I'll give you a couple of minutes to get your pictures in. And we're guessing at scale, and we're guessing at orientation. You might need to move yours around like this. I've got this in plan. And we've got this one is in section. I'm gonna flip it up like my little diagram.
Make sure they're the same skin.
Ah, okay. Well, let's have a look. There's a really, really useful scale tool. Well, so let's just use our eyes first. I've put a little guy here. How big is a water jug compared to a man? I mean, I'm looking at mine and I'm thinking, well, that's a pretty big water jug for a guy to lift, isn't it? So let's make this a little bit smaller, just to start with. And if I hold down the shift button and use one of the little scale widgets on the gumball, I can sort of scale them both like that. But I also want to make sure that this and this are kind of roughly in the same ballpark in terms of scale. So the easiest way of doing it is to move them so they're over one another. They're not too bad at the moment. Do you see how they kind of match up? But this one's probably a little bit too big. Something like that. I mean, I haven't drawn them particularly well. As you can see, my own plans and sections aren't.
Chris, how do you flip?
Say again?
How do you flip the image?
So once you've laid it down, you use the gumball. Oh, as in mirror it.
Yeah.
So you can click on the red one, just click it once, and it gives you a text box. And you can type -1 and it'll flip it round. Or you can rotate it 180 like that. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Like I say, we're not all about exactness. We're about getting because our sketch isn't exact, right? I can guarantee your sketch isn't exact. And also, like, okay, maybe this is still a bit too big in terms of scale. But on the other hand, once we've finished modeling it, we can change the scale of the whole thing. So it's just getting us to a starting point and making sure we're not working at a like stupidly small or stupidly big sort of scale. And then, do you see what I've just done? I've taken this one, the one that I flipped up, the section or the elevation, and I've aligned it onto the ground plane. So it's kind of sitting in the right sort of place. And again, my sketch is not accurate to the millimeter. So where exactly you put it is not worth losing sleep over. Okay. Yeah. How do you scale it down? Select them, hold down the shift key, and then any one of these buttons here are scale widgets. So you can scale it up and down like that. Or you can use the scale tool, which is you type scale. So if you type scale, then it'll ask you for a base point and you click a corner. First reference point, click another corner. Second reference point, you'll scale along that line like that. Or we can do same thing again. Select these objects, or you could scale it from one corner to another corner like that. Nice. Right, we're running slow on time because this is supposed to be a rapid thing. Now we've got our sketches in. The next thing we want to do is make a new layer and call it sketch, and change the objects to be on that layer, because we're all about organization. And then we're going to do something cool. We're going to lock that layer. We put the little padlock on. And what that means is now I can do stuff over this without moving it about. Yeah? Really helpful way of doing things. Like I say, these sketches are rubbish, but I pretty much guarantee that your jug is going to be in some way cylindrical or circular, right? So how might we go about trying to model that in Rhino? What's that? Yeah, could do. You could do 3 circles and loft. Certainly, that would be one really easy way of doing it. So you could do, I'm going to use construction curve layer. So I can do a circle for the bottom. And do you see how little I particularly care about exactly where the center of this circle is. So there's a base, and then I could Control-C, Control-V, and then drag that up a little bit and maybe move my viewport around. And then Control-C, Control-V, and move that guy up. And in fact, actually, this is where quite helpful to maybe switch to one of these side views. Now, this guy looks to me to be a little bit wide, so I can just scooch him in. We'll scooch him in. And we'll scooch him in too. And now you can start to see where your own sketch doesn't match up with your own plan and section. And that's lovely. That's a wonderful thing, because now we're working in 3D, we can be a lot more accurate about what we're trying to do. And now I can select these three and loft them together and get this lovely thing, whatever this thing is. What is this thing? I don't know. It's a thing. There's another cool trick that we can use. Over and above lofting, you could also use something called Revolve. Revolve is cool. I'll just give you a little lesson in Revolve. I'm going to draw two lines. My first line is going to go from the center of my jug out to one edge like this. Okay. And the next line is going to go from the base. So I'll go from here up to the top, like the axis of the water jug. And now what I can do is I can draw a nice curve that goes from this edge up and then across like this. And I'm going to put 3 control points down and then move the control points so that the whole thing matches that outer edge of the jug. Yeah. And the other cool thing is I've got this line sitting in line with my axis of rotation. And then I can type Revolve. It says select curve to revolve. I'll select this edge curve that I've kind of matched with the edge of my jug. Press enter when done. Start of revolve axis, and I'm going to use this line from here. End of revolve axis is here. Start angle 0. So we're going to set an angle from 0 all the way around 360, and it gives me a full solid shape. Revolution angle 360 degrees. And then I get the same shape that I would have got with lofting curves, but I've only used one curve to set that rotation. Okay, how are we getting on?
Change the seat plane when you were drawing the line, the vertical one.
So the way I did it was I used the front viewport and I used Smart Track. If you've got Smart Track turned on, I'll show you that again. So I knew I wanted a line with 3 control points. So I used the curve tool. Watch this one, Kate. I went from here, and as soon as I hovered over the end, because I've got Smart Track turned on, it turned white. So I click once, and I come down here, and I hold down Shift, and I go up in a straight line. But that's going up in a straight line from my original point. So I didn't have to change the C-plane. I've just gone up from that line. And then I hover over that endpoint and I go in a little bit and hold down Shift. And now I'm done. And then I grab the control points and I move them where I want them to be, because I know I wanted 3. That makes sense? Cool. And now I know that line is exactly in line with the start, but it's on the plane going up because I'm working on the front thing. Okay. Just going to revolve that again. Yep. Trying to import the image, just click and drag. Is that because you've taken it with a funny version? So iPhone by default. What's that? And it worked for Tanash, but not for you. Oh no. What version of Rhino are you using? 7. Just an image file should work. Are you trying to import it onto a layer that's locked? This isn't super important, so work with Tanash for now, and then I'll come and fix it in a bit and go through the recording in a little while. Okay, right, I want to do a handle and I want to do a spout. Here's a little teapot, short and stout. My handle. Right, how am I going to do a handle? I want a curve, a guide curve that's kind of similar to this guide curve that's sitting on the edge. Yeah. So potentially it might at this point be nice to put a C-plane that's like in the middle of our jug on the front viewport. So the easiest way of doing that is just to, oh, by the way, that should be on the surfaces layer. Being bad at organizing things. So I've got my construction curves in red and my surfaces in whatever color you want. I'm going to make a surface that is exactly in through the center of my jug, and I'm going to use it to define a C-plane. That's how I'm going to do it. So easiest way of doing that is going to be this line here. Do you see this line that I put down at the bottom that goes out to the edge? I'm going to click it and type extrude curve, and it'll allow me to extrude that curve into a surface going straight up. Everyone with me? So it's your curve that was kind of the radius of the bottom of your jug, and you can extrude it up. And then we remember this from last week, C-planes, set C-plane to surface. And I'm going to choose this surface, please. And I could even, if I want to be really, really keen, I'll set that C-plane to be right in the middle. And the X direction is going out this way. And now I got my grid going right through the very, very middle of my jug. Yeah, I'm going to do that one more time. Okay, so I've drawn a line. One of my construction lines was from the center of the bottom of the jug out to the edge. And it was where I put my axis to revolve around. If you don't have that and you lofted things using circles, then using the O snap tool, click on Sen in the bottom, C-E-N, and that will let you snap to the center of a circle. I'll give you a little demonstration of that now. Click on Sen and grab yourself a line tool. And if you hover around the edge of a circle, it'll snap to the center of it and it'll say Sen. Yeah, and that'll give you what the center is, rather than guessing. Yeah. And then we can go up to the top viewport and just hold down Shift and come out in a straight line like this. Do you want a hand, Yusuf? You're doing okay. You found the center line? How did you draw it? Oh, you did some circles and then you lofted. So the circles will let you find the center. You might have to turn off some of the other snaps in order to find the Sen And the easiest thing to do is find a bit of the circle where it's like not a corner, not one of the north, south, east, west points. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Escape out of that. Hover over. No, hover over the edge of the circle in an area where it says Sen, and then click once, and then you see it snapped to.
Oh, okay.
Jade, how do you draw up? Okay, so you find your first point, and then you come down to one of the front or right viewports and hold down Shift and move your mouse up, and it'll go straight up from there. So you want all 4 viewports open for this. Okay. And then now you've got. Do you want me to come and give you a hand, Yusuf? Okay. So you want to go to the center. We're looking for a point that's like down here, right? Yeah. Now my polyline tool, make sure Sen is turned on. And because this is a circle, you see it says Sen and then it's highlighted the center? Yeah. I just click there. And now I put it there. And now I hold down Shift. And now I've got a line that's like coming from the center out. Yeah. Then I can extrude. Curve. Not extrude it up. Now you've got a surface going straight through the middle. Right, sorry about that. We're getting there. Once you set your C-plane, everything becomes way easier now. Because we remember C-planes are really helpful because now when you draw anything, it's going to go onto that C-plane. So now I can just draw a curve. And it's going to go, where's the curve going to go? Well, I think it's going to go from, and I want to kind of demonstrate something here that you can go inside the jug and it's okay. You don't need to have it so that it's exactly like meeting the edge of the jug. I want you to kind of put it inside. And now I'm moving my control points around just to kind of get this rough thing. But because I'm working on this C-plane, all of everything's sort of lined up quite nicely. Do you want me to do that one more time so you can see what I did? Okay, I'll delete that curve. I've set my C-plane to be going right through the middle of my cylinder or my revolved thing. And what that means is that wherever I click, if I click anything, anywhere, then that's going to go onto this C-plane. Got me? It doesn't matter where I click it, it's going to go onto that C-plane. Oh, I just deleted it because I didn't need it anymore. Yeah. So I extruded it up, I used it to set the C-plane, and then I deleted it. Okay, with me? And what that means is I can kind of use this view and I can just say, okay, well, I'm going to need a curve that has 4 control points in order to get this kind of line. Because it's got to come out and then down and then in again. So I need 4 control points. So I'm just going to put down a curve that has 4 control points. I'm not going to snap it to anything. I just want to put the curve down. I come out like that, like down, and then in again. And then I'll press enter. And then I'll look at it and I'll be like, well, it's kind of in the wrong place, but that's okay. Because then I can come back out here and I can move the control point to where I need them to be. Are you with me? Have you fallen off the wave? Is your mouth full of seawater? Not what does nodding mean? Nodding means I'm with you or I've fallen off the wave. You've fallen off the wave. Okay. I'm making a guide curve here for the handle, which will soon be the handle of the jug. I think most of you have drawn a jug with a handle. Yeah? Okay. I want that handle to be bang in the middle of my cylinder or my volume. And there were a couple of really useful construction curves that I did. And one was this axis, and another was this line on the base that kind of went out from the middle of the axis out. With me? Okay. The question then becomes, how do I draw a curve in space that I know, all I'm going to do is select these construction curves and isolate them. And I'm going to turn the sketches off. I want to know that this line for the handle is bang in line with these two things here. And the way I'm going to do it is by using a construction plane. And you'll see my grid is kind of really nicely lined up with those two lines. And the way I got there was by selecting the one on the bottom and extruding it up. And because my C-plane's in the wrong place, I need to do this. Go back to how you had it. There we go. I've got no C-plane here. My C-plane's on the world going down. Oh, there's another option, you know. I could extrude this, but I'd want to extrude it in a different direction. So I'd need to click direction and choose that way. And then I still get a surface that is basically like a piece of paper cutting my jug in half. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I want a piece of paper that's exactly cutting my jug in half. And the reason I know it's exactly cutting my jug in half is because I'm using the same construction line that I used to make the jug. And that's why construction lines are really helpful, because I can go back to the one that I used before. And then I'm going to set C-plane to surface, which is this button, which is the blue globe in the C-planes tab. Set C-plane to surface, select surface to orient C-plane to. I'm going to select the one I've just made, which you just do by extruding a curve in whichever way. And then I'm going to choose the C-plane origin to be the point at which those two curves intersect, which is like the very base bottom of the jug, like here. For those online, here. I can click there. And the x-axis direction is fairly irrelevant, but I mean, I might as well just choose one of the other corners. And now suddenly my grid, like, whoa, I've got a new grid that I never had before. And here's my grid. And at that point, I can delete this surface because it's served its purpose. Now, whenever I draw anything, anywhere, I'll just rotate around here. I just clicked randomly in the perspective viewport, and I'm specifically using the perspective viewport because that's where I set the C-plane. Whatever I draw is gonna end up on that C-plane, and that allows me to just draw a curve, and that's the curve I just drew. I didn't try and snap it to anything. I just drew the curve because the C-plane is going to take care of the rest.
Do we always have to change the C-plane? For example, if we're drawing floors, if I'm drawing the second floor.
If you were drawing a second floor of a building, there are two ways of doing it. You could draw it, you could move the C-plane and draw, or you could draw it somewhere else and then move it into place. I like setting C-planes because as soon as you set it, it's great. Now, C-planes, if you're still snapping to things, you need to be careful that you don't snap to something that's like on a different C-plane. So, for example, if I... Yeah, I could have snapped on the surface without C-planes at all. I'm just doing this as an example for getting used to changing C-planes. Okay, I'm going to type unisolate. So I bring back all the rest of my stuff. At this point, it's starting to become a little bit easier to turn your sketch off, isn't it? Because you kind of got most of the things that you need already. So why not turn your sketch layer off? Again, really good reason for using layers, because now we can do a little bit of tidying up and turn some things off that you don't need. And how do you think we might make this into a handle that has some actual 3D to it? Pipe. Lovely. Beautiful. And let's set a radius. And again, let's use our eyes. Let's not be worried about exact number of millimeters. It gives you a nice circle here. So I think I want to be using it about, here's a cool thing about pipe. If you pipe one curve, you can set different radii. So you can have a radius there, a radius here, and a radius in the middle that's like thicker. How cool is that? Whoa, mental. And because I've made this a surface, I'm going to change it to the surfaces layer. I mean, it's not perfect, but it'll do. Are you with me so far? No. Ask me some questions. Where have you fallen off the wave? The C-plane. Yeah, I used the C-plane to draw a curve for exactly where the handle was going to go. I mean, if you wanted to be not so exact about it, set the C-plane back to the world top. Delete that and delete that. And I'm thinking to myself, I want a handle that's on this edge in the middle. Yeah. So, I mean, I could do this. I could snap it to here and then come out using the shift key and then go down. Where am I going to go down? I need to find somewhere that I can snap to that's like down on the ground. And this line is quite helpful. So I'll snap to there and then maybe I'll come in and like snap there. And that way I've still got something that's like exactly in line. And now I need to obviously move some of these things about. And I'm going to use the red and the blue arrows to do that. And I want to be like not precious, but I want to know that it's all in line because otherwise it's going to be a bit wibbly and wobbly. So it's all about speed at this point. And then I use the pipe command and I can do cool stuff like set different radii and it'll blend in between those radii. That makes sense. I mean, I've got the same output. I didn't use C-plane, but it's kind of slightly nicer to be able to just put the C-plane where you want and then draw and then put the C-plane back and then put the C-plane somewhere else and then draw and then put the C-plane back. Okay, I don't want to spend too long on this. Also because we're sort of starting to get into a bit of a problem about Rhino, right? And the problem is that we're really slow now. We've been going 45 minutes and we've made a sort of curvy thing and a handle. And in 45 minutes, I mean, we could all have done a lot more. What's the reason we're being so slow? What do we think? What's that? No, nothing to do with that, because each thing takes a couple of seconds to type in. Nothing to do with shortcuts. Haven't done it a lot. Yeah, okay, it's part of it is that. What else? What are you all thinking? I hope I didn't do the wrong thing. I hope I didn't make a mistake. What's the right way? Tell me the right way to do it. The thing about Rhino is it works best when you don't care. Now, there are some things you do want to care about. And that's why I'm kind of going through the C-plane stuff and like making sure that everything's kind of straight at least, or a bit straight, so that you kind of know where you are. And then after a while, you're just like, actually, this doesn't matter. Yeah. Have you all got some kind of pipe that does some kind of curvy thing on the edge of some kind of revolved thing? Then you have succeeded. Everything after that doesn't matter. Yeah? Okay, lovely. I mean, the stuff that I'm seeing looks lovely, looks great. It's beautiful. Let's just go through a couple of really useful other commands. And because actually, I don't think anyone has fallen off the wave. I think we're doing okay. Yeah, that's all we need to do. But what I wanted to show was the fact that because I drew I wanted you to get used to the idea that you draw a curve and it isn't exactly right. It doesn't snap to anything, but you can use it to model expressively. Yeah, because the thing that you're modeling now is based on your sketch, which was expressive and not accurate. So the thing that you need to be accurate are like making sure that you're in this three-dimensional world. The thing that you don't need to be accurate about is everything matching up. Because here's the cool thing. You've got this handle, and currently the handle pokes through your main thing. I kind of wanted you to make something where the handle poked through, because then we can do something called trim. We select the main bit of your jug, type trim, and then you can select the pokey through-y bits of your handle. And when you click on them, they'll disappear. Is that working for you? Yeah? Easiest view mode to be in is ghosted. Be in ghosted view mode, because then you can see where they poke through and you can see inside. But now, how cool is that? Your pipe exactly matches up. Shall I do that one more time for anyone who missed it? So what I did is I typed trim, select cutting objects. I'm going to use this as a cutting object. Press enter when done. And then I clicked on the inside bit of the pipe and the inside bit of that pipe. I press enter. And it just trims it away. And then this pipe exactly fits around there. So you're using the computer to do the exact stuff so that you can be expressive. That makes sense? If you tried to model that curve, you wouldn't be able to do it. Just guarantee it. Instead, let yourself do the expressive bits and then tidy it up. Okay, lovely. We've made a jug out of your sketch. Could you see yourself doing this with architecture is the question. You do some sketching of a space. Maybe section is a good way of doing it. Section, I find, is the best way. You take a photo of your sketch, you bring it in, set it to the right kind of scale. What kind of scale? Using people to scale, not millimeters to scale. And then you start building around your sketch, and you're using C-planes to make sure that you're building in the right direction. If you want to go up, you want your C-plane to be helping you go up. If you try to go up in a weird way, and then it looks great in the perspective view, and then you move your camera a bit and the whole thing is just like wonky, or your lines go down to the ground or whatever it is, it's going to really annoy you. So the C-planes are supposed to be helping you, they're guides. What I want to just introduce you to is this idea of iteration between Rhino and sketching. Okay. We've just modeled something really, really simple. This is a project that I was involved in a few years ago. And let's just have a look. I'm going to go up to the top viewport. I'm just giving you a very quick insight into the process here. And it is this. This is the site. And this is the first thing I did in Rhino. So the first thing I did in Rhino was I modeled the site. This is a screenshot, literally just a screenshot from Rhino. Model the site. I got the topography off satellite data, teamed up with a load of friends, and each of us modeled one of the buildings on the site. And there's a lot of stuff there, but it's a terrible screenshot, so you can't even see. I'll show you a bit later. And the concept was it's like a viaduct coming out of the hill. And so this is, what's that, like 15 construction curves, 20 construction curves? Took me about 10 minutes to model it. So once the site's done, I'm just drawing curves in 3D space using Rhino, just coming out of the hill. And it looks pretty cool, but like it's not architecture yet. It's just construction curves. So then what happens? Well, okay, maybe it's a little bit more. Maybe it's got some kind of fins that run down the hill or something. And this is one of my views from Rhino. But like, if you submitted that as a plan, people would laugh at you, or a section, people would laugh at you. But instead, what you do is you then print it out and you fill in the gaps with pen and pencil and colored pencil and whatever you've got. And so I knew that there going to be this kind of netting. I don't know if you can see that, this kind of like netting stuff. And it was the idea it was going to catch the fog. So as the fog rolls up the hill in the morning with the prevailing winds, the fog condenses on this netting and it rolls down. Do you know how long it would have taken me to model fog netting in Rhino? Hours and hours and hours and hours. Was there any point in doing it? No. I modeled the big fins that I know is going to hold it, and then I filled the rest in with pencil. Just a bit of hatching. So how long does it take to go from here to here to here? About an hour or two. And then maybe there's another iteration. Maybe actually, rather than going all the way down to the ground, maybe the whole thing's on the stilts. So I've got another option there. I print out two copies of this really rubbish section that I got from Rhino that's like half modeled, but I don't care because I'm filling in the gaps with pen and paper. And then maybe I do an AXO thing where I print out these boxes. I know the boxes are going to be where people live, and literally, so what's this in Rhino? It's a box tool. Takes you 10 minutes. And then you just go to your perspective viewport, print out that, and then scribble over it. Yeah. Anything that is going to take you a little bit longer, do it with pen first. And then when you've got your sketch, bring it back into Rhino and use that to model against, like we've just done with the jug. If I said to you, make a jug in Rhino from nothing, would you have been able to do it? Maybe, but much easier to have the sketch there to refer back to. And then, okay, now I've got this kind of nice idea that I got from the sketch. I can go back into Rhino and put some extra stuff in there. I've modeled some boxes, which are hotel rooms, for example, or I've got surfaces that are starting to tell me about this fog stuff. And I've got a little hint of structure, but I'm not going any further than that. And like, actually this takes, how long does this take to make? Copy and paste some boxes, like a couple of lofts, 3 lofts, and some trimmed like lines and polylines. And then that gives me this, which is horrible. Do I care? No, I print it out. I print that version out, didn't really like it, printed that version out, much better, and then draw over it. And then you draw the architecture in much quicker than you can in Rhino. And then maybe you iterate over it and you carve out some space. Maybe this is a lobby where there aren't some boxes. So you just rub it out or use tracing paper or something. And then you've got some idea of like, maybe there's some kind of structure here. Again, this process, this model is 10 minutes. This sketch, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. It's like, how quickly can you get to something that you then take a screenshot of, print it out, sketch over the rest? Because it's not finished doesn't mean you, oh, I need to spend 3 more hours in Rhino. Because it's not finished means brilliant. It's not finished, print it out and finish it with a pen. Do you get me? Okay. But then once to go from here to here, that's maybe a few hours work. That's a decent drawing, but I'm working on the drawing scale. So I've got a sketch that starts me off that has quite a bit of detail in it. but then I really dig into the detail and I say, okay, what's all this made of? What's the wall build up here? Well, there's no wall build up, but this is 1 to 100. So, but now I can go into a lot more detail in 2D if I need to, and in 3D, and I can generate ground floor plan, first floor plan, but I treat them as specific outputs and specific drawings. I'm not thinking my model is the end of everything. In fact, I ended up with, and I've kind of drawn this here, I've ended up with 2 completely different models. Got one model, which is all about looking at the whole thing. Do you see this box here? It's just a box. Nothing special about that box. It renders out as a white box, but you put a bit of fog in the render and it looks pretty good. It looks okay, yeah? What I really care about here are these lines and how they join with the landscape, and that's where my project's really about. Then I've got a completely separate model, which is this. And that is, well, what is that box? What's going on with that box? Do you think it's worth having this level of detail for this render? Not in the slightest. You can't see it. It's just a box. So in fact, I think I've got them open at the moment. Do I have? Yeah. So this is my 1 to 20 model from where I got that render. And this is my final GA model from where I got the big render. And the GA model doesn't have any of the stuff that the 1 to 20 has in. But it's okay because one comes from the iterations of the GA plan and one comes from the iterations of the 1 to 20. That makes sense? So one of the things that gets people is this need to be in Rhino all the time and do everything in one model, in one software, with one approach. Right. So yeah, basically just kind of giving you permission to get out and then get back in and then get out and then get back in. Where did my thing go? Right. Oh yeah, here we go. This I found the model that I got the screenshots from that I then sketched over. So it's this. It's like some boxes, copy paste. Then maybe there's like a lift shaft or something, but that's it. Do you think you could model that? I think you could. You've got everything you need to be able to model that. Really, really simple. Let's go back to this guy. I don't know why these are there. Don't need them. I want to talk a little bit about. Okay, let's take 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about other ways to get out and also organization. Oh, it's going to be good. I hope you're all ready for some really boring chat about folders. It's going to revolutionize your life, man. I'm going to come around and make sure everyone's happy with their different things. Olivia and Julia, are you okay? You with me? Good. Okay, great stuff. Be back in 5 minutes. Enjoy a break. Get some sleep, Julia. We're recording again. Folder structure. How many of you have a way of organizing your work in folders? Put your hand up. 50-50-ish. Okay, it's something I've noticed over the years. Google Drive does this thing where you just put it in your Google Drive and then when you need it, you search for it, right? It's not going to work with 3D models because 3D models need to know where they are on your hard drive or where they are on your thumb drive or your backup disk or wherever it is. Use Google Drive, but also organize your work into folders that make sense for the way that you function. So for me, I've got everything in my Google Drive. I've got an architecture folder. Let's go into teaching, DS1, 21, 22. I've got weeks here. So this is week 4. So this is where my digital workshop folder is. But actually, if I look at MRHD, this is kind of where you are more likely to be. let's look at something like zone 5. This is what I'd like to do personally. Each one of these folders has a number 0000, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that means they're all in chronological order. So when I work on something new, I go down to the bottom and I say, oh, okay, well, the last folder was 40. So I go 041 is my new folder, and it's the new thing I'm working on. Within that folder, there might be, I mean, I don't know. Let's have a look at BA was even slightly better organized. Each thing I'm working on then is going to have a name, and it tells me later that that name is going to sort of guide me to what I was working on. Cloud Hotel. And in that, I've got Rhino models, I've got things that I've output, so PDFs. And so almost what you're looking at is like a little subsection of my iterations. My Rhino models, my PDFs come out of the Rhino models. I'll show you how to do that in a second. I've got renders that come out. I've got screenshots that come out. They're all different things. I might have site photos, whatever. And then within the Rhino models, I'm using this thing called incremental save. And incremental save is like the best thing in the world. I'll just introduce that to you now. It's called, at the moment, my file is called Digital Workshop 002 Ecosystem. And that's my second digital workshop, and I've called it Ecosystem. If I click incremental save, you'll notice that on the end of my file name gets put a 001, and my file is saved in the same place, in the same folder, but it now got 001 on the end. And at the end of the year, if you get to a point where your Rhino file is 300, 400, 500 megabytes in size, and it crashes when you open it, you are going to be really happy if you have a version that you were working on an hour ago or yesterday or the day before that's one number less than the one that you have just made crash and unstable and doesn't work. So what I tend to do is just always, rather than save, I always incremental save. That's why you can look at like this guy here. This is iteration 20. This is iteration 53. It doesn't mean I've done 53 times of printing out and coming back in. It just means I've incremental saved 53 times. But that's the best way of using Rhino. And yeah, it takes up tons of space, but it's worth it, guarantee. Because you open it, something's wrong, you just go back to the previous version. Incremental save, there you go. And folder structures, keeping your Rhino files in one folder and then your output in different ways in another folder means that you don't end up with this kind of folder just full of guff and stuff. And it also means that not only do you can find it when you want to put your portfolio together at the end, but it also means that your programs can find it. So for example, getting into Rhino, there's other ways you can get into Rhino, not just from sketches. I'm just going to sort of show you. Houdini's amazing. I might give you a little bit of intro in Houdini at some point, but like it does animation and simulation. So this is like a stupid thing I put together last night. It's like a guy running and he's like covered in hair, and the hair moves in a way that like makes sense in terms of physics. Okay. Now, obviously that's just like stupid, but I can save the geometry out of here as an OBJ, and then I can come back into Rhino and I can import, just type import. Let's find, here we go, geo out, open. I'll just use the default buttons. It's kind of come in at a stupidly small scale because Houdini and Rhino use different scales, but I can fix that. Scale from 000, and I think it's a meter. So I'll scale by 1,000, and then we'll see. Yeah, that looks about right, doesn't it? Let's use my little yellow guy here. Yeah, he looks the same sort of size as the other people. But now I've got my geometry from like a ridiculous simulation program. It's just in Rhino. It's ready to go. So if you use SketchUp for something, because SketchUp's the fastest way of doing it, doesn't stop you using Rhino. You can just, in fact, you can import SketchUp files natively. You just click and drag them. Say, yeah, import them into Rhino. I'll delete that because it's a huge bit of thing.
When you do incremental save, does it save 3 files like 001, 002, 003,
Yeah.
like Revit?
Yeah.
And then it keeps the data.
Yeah. So let's have a look at here for. So I was using the file Digital Workshop 002 ecosystem, and that's 35 megabytes. I did incremental save, and now it's made a 001, and that's 38. And if I did another incremental save, it'll think about it for a second.
So
And now there's
incremental
002.
It's just one, unless you do another one. And so when you click incremental save, it doesn't automatically do 3 copies, just one.
No, it only makes 1 copy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like Revit where it does 3 ones from the last half an hour or whatever it is. No, this just makes another copy of the file, and you'll see they're kind of the same, but like this one's a tiny bit bigger. Okay. You can import from. The other things that we're going to obviously be using, we're really interested in environmental data. So one of the things that we can do is also set the sun and our location options. You just type in sun, and then let's put the sun on. Yeah. Type in sun. Oh, this is the cool thing about Rhino. If you think it, you type it, it'll probably give you the thing you want. Let's set the sun, and we're going to set a few different things up. One of the things that we can do is once your sun is on, scroll down and set a location. At the moment, our location seems to be in Ghana. I have no idea why, but that's where it is. So instead, let's search for the closest location, which is probably going to be London. And that'll set the latitude and longitude for your project. It'll set the time zone. It'll do loads of cool stuff. It'll also say, when you set the date and time, which way the sun is going to come from. So do you see I'm scrubbing through the day for today? Today is, oh, actually, it's set the date as the 1st of January 2000. Let's set the date to today, eh? 2021, and it is the 12th of the 10th. As soon as you put that date in, it will give you a day that you can scrub through. And it will show you exactly where the sun is going to be coming from and coming to in your day. It'll even update this nice little satellite map of the world for you. Okay. Now, the question that many people ask is, Rhino likes to have an X and a Y and a Z plane, and it's often really much easier to use the X and the Y plane for your short and long sections of your building, but that might not be where north is. Yeah, but you can set where north is based on this little guy here. So if you know that you want to orient your project so that it's 45 degrees to north, you can drag your arrow around 45 degrees or type in where north is. And that will change the where north is in your project. And the sun will still work exactly as you expect it to. Okay. What I want, I'm just going to close the sun tab. We can always get it back anytime by just typing sun. So I'll close it for now. And we'll do just a really quick introduction to solar analysis in Rhino. Like, we're going to get much deeper than this, but as you design, it's a really helpful tool. So you've set location, you've set the sun angle for today, for example, or choose a solstice or whatever the other one is. What's the word?
Equinox.
Equinox. Thank you. I knew it began with E. Okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks, SAD people. Let's just build a few boxes that are going to be like, I don't know, some surrounding buildings, like a site. And let's just put them on the default layer for now. And let's also make a rectangle that goes on the ground plane, and we will turn it into a planar surface. I'm being really ridiculous here, but like for your site in Headington Hill Hall, you could start to model some of these things as cones for trees, like really simple, or just spheres sort of bobbling in the air. Or you could start modeling the whole trees, you know, go mad. I'm just kind of just choosing some things here. And then maybe we've got a, I'm going to build a really, really, really simple building. I imagine your building is going to be better than this. No, actually, you know what? I'm going to build a more exciting building than just a box. Let's put down, let's just go back to last week. We'll put down a few curves, a few construction curves. And do you remember record history? Record history on, select those, and loft. This is kind of how I like to work, but you know, you might have a different way of working. We're just going to build a little thing. And do you remember what I was saying about speed? Speed is the name of the game. Speed is good. Everyone loves speed. Speed means you're not worrying too much about what you're doing. And when you don't worry too much about what you're doing, you can actually be creative. What's the cardinal rule I've ignored? Don't have a little guy in here. So I have no idea how big the thing is that I'm building. It kind of looks about right. All right. I want to just really encourage you to just speed. Don't care. Don't worry. It doesn't matter. No one cares. Build me a thing. Build me a little blob. Or some kind of sort of pavilion that someone's going to live in. Oh, Mitch, you've just found the seaplane thing, right?
Yeah.
You moved it, but it looked great in one viewport, but you were moving it along the seaplane on the ground. So you're going to need to use the gumball. Move him back. No, just the control point. Find the control point you moved. Yeah, and then use the gumball to drag up using the blue arrow. Just one control point. That's it. And now you know you're going up because it's the blue arrow. Beautiful. Okay, stop where you are. Whatever you've got, stop. I'm sure you'll have something that's lovely. All we're going to do, switch to rendered mode, and then type sun. And oh, you can do this cool thing where if you drag it, you can dock it. You can dock your sun panel to one of the sides. So I've just docked mine next to my layers. So now I can I've got enough to do a sun study now, which is kind of useful. I've set my layer. I've set my layers up. I've set my location to be London. And I can do a sun study based on any date or time that you care to bear in mind. So let's do one for 7 o'clock this morning. I've also set my north arrow. So at the moment, my north arrow is slightly off.
make the sun visible?
The sun visible? Ah, yes. Well, you could, or you could use some of these really useful things here, where you know that the altitude is 2.4 degrees and the azimuth is 105 or whatever it is. So you could put a point in the middle of your what's it? I'm thinking about drawing it here, but what's the easiest way of doing it? There isn't an easy way to show the sun in Rhino. You could draw your own sun rose or sun diagram, or you could import one from, there's plenty of tools that will generate you a sun path diagram. The easiest way, the easiest thing that I've found is you don't care too much about exactly where the sun is. What you care about is where the shadows are. Because effectively what you're doing in a kind of this kind of level of, this is very, very quick, like levels of analysis. We care about where the shadows lie. And what this allows you to do is to say, okay, well, I kind of like where the shadows are going here, but it would be nicer if maybe this was a little bit more shaded. So I'll drag that, my record history comes on, and now I've got a bit more shade there. Do you see where I'm going? Like, this is really quick iterations. I don't care too much about all of the exact things. So that's the morning. And then as the afternoon carries on, maybe you could do a nice little screen capture video of you just literally scrubbing through a day and showing people where do the shadows go, where do they come from, and you're sort of saying, okay, well, I'm using actually this building here as part of my shading to mean that I can open up that part of my pavilion, for example, or drag back that corner. Yeah, let's just drag this back a little bit to open that up, because I know that this building is going to provide me a little bit of shade at that point in the day, for example.
Moving the construction lines, right?
I'm moving the construction lines because I had record history on. So this is what I mean when I say iterative design. This is really simple. It's taken 10 minutes. I've got a form. I've brought my sun information in, and now I'm having this conversation about, okay, well, that's October. Okay, what about in April? What does the day look like in April? It kind of looks sort of working, you know. Oh, maybe I want to move, the whole thing just a little bit closer to this building or a little bit further away or whatever. This is not quantitative solar analysis. This is qualitative shading analysis, if you want to give it a word. But what I could do is very easily produce a rather lovely portfolio page, which is, I'm going to show you two really, really, really useful things. That, again, it's about getting out of Rhino and getting into your portfolio with minimum of fuss. So you might want to go along with this with me. Under your perspective viewport, you've got a little arrow. Set your view up to something that you like something that kind of gives you some information about the site, that lets you see it in all its glory. You can really say, hey, this is cool. I like this. Yeah. And then expand that out, and you're going to go down, all the way down to set view. And then named views. Set view, named views. Got that up? You can also type named views, but the easiest way I've found to show it is to use that little arrow. And it'll give you a little box and it says no named views have been saved. Well, we're going to make a new one. Once you've found the view that you like and you're using the rendered viewport, so you can see the shadows. That's really important because the whole point is you can see the shadows. We're going to save as, and we'll call it Sun Study. Happy with this? Two things have happened. Exactly where your camera is has now been saved, and your view has changed from perspective to being called sun study. So when you start to do rendering and that kind of thing, you are going to really, really like having your named view set up, because what will allow you to do is I can still move around. I can move my camera wherever it needs to be, but as soon as I need to, I can go set view, sun study, and my camera will switch back to exactly where it was before. And it also means that you can render something, you can change your mind about something, and then re-render it, but not have to render the whole thing, because you can switch your camera back to exactly where it was, re-render that just that little bit, and then Photoshop it together. And you'll save hours and hours and hours of rendering time. So always save your views, I would say. Okay, we've got a save view. It's called sun study. And then let's do morning, afternoon, evening. And we're going to produce a series of images from our view, yeah, for a sun study. And probably the best thing to do would be equinoxes, wouldn't it? So remind me when the equinoxes are. We're 2021, they're 21st of June. That's 6, 2021.
That's solstice. Equinox is the annual.
No, that's solstice. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, solstice is what we want, isn't it? Yeah. This is when the sun is highest in the sky. Here it is, highest in the sky. Morning, afternoon, evening. So let's do a morning. And I'm going to type hyphen. Whoa, what's going on here? Hyphen view capture to file. And the reason I've typed hyphen view capture to file is because I want Rhino to give me a whole load of options after my view capture to file. So I just click enter, and it says save file name, unit pixels, width, height, blah, 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 blah. At this point, I can set the width and height in pixels of the image I want to get out. And 1246 by 716 seems a little bit small to me. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I want 2500 pixels wide and 1500 pixels high. And that'll give me a higher res image out. So better than screenshotting just what you happen to have on your screen, I'm saying I want a high res screenshot. So I could print this A1 and it would still look pretty good.
Can you repeat what you typed?
Yep. So I typed hyphen view capture to file. And what that does is it captures the view to a file. I've set the width and the height. And then the last option is one called browse. And you want to browse and you're going to find, this is again why folder structure is important. I mean, you set the width and height of the image that you want, up to you. You can make it square, you can make it wide and long, high and deep, however you like it. And then the last option is called browse. And again, this is why folder structure is important, right? Because now I need to know where I'm going to save my files. Doesn't work just by, chucking things out. Here it is. And I'm going to call this sun study images. And we'll give this a name and we'll call it summer solstice morning. And then click enter and it say image successfully saved. Okay, well, let's move on to midday. And then we're going to do view capture to file. It should remember your width and height. So all we need to do is browse. It'll remember where you saved the last one. So now we're just going to call it summer solstice midday.jpg. Save that out. We move to the evening. And we again type view capture to file, browse, summer solstice, evening. And you could do the same for winter solstice. You could do the same for the equinoxes. And now I've got 3 lovely high-res images that are going to look great in any portfolio that shows you exactly where the shadows go on the summer solstice. Jade. I chose 2,500 wide by 1,500 high. In my mind, I would never want a screenshot less than 1,000 pixels, high or wide, just because otherwise, after a while, you'll realize you want to do something nice with it, or you might want to do something nice with it. And your computer doesn't, I mean, look at the quality of the shadows that you get, even with this like quick render. Really nice. They start to look really good. Yeah. And you can see exactly where the shadows go and where they sit on the site. This is simple stuff, and we're going to get into much more complicated solder analysis, but I wanted to show you this as a design tool. Yeah. And then these outputs are what allow you to demonstrate that you've actually taken it seriously. It's 10 to 11. I'm sort of keen, where did we get to? I'm keen just to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to kind of be happy with where we are. Are there any questions you want to ask at this point in terms of using Rhino as a design tool, getting in, getting out? What kind of things are people thinking that they're going to be doing more of in this year?
How do you create pages on Rhino?
Ah, right. Let's do that. 5 minutes. That's a really good idea. Okay. I've got a tutorial in 5 minutes. I need a plan, a section, and a perspective of my project. I mean, it's a rubbish project, but I'm going to use this as an example. Okay. I'm going to do a section first. I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to call it clipping plane. Clipping plane is like your favorite thing. It's the best thing ever. And in order to put a clipping plane down, I type clipping plane. And I'll put it on the ground like this. And then I'll move it where I want to move it. And your clipping plane, I'll just demonstrate. I've put it up on its side like this, and I'm going to move it. Can you see I'm moving it through the model, and it's clipping it in the way that it wants to clip it. So I'll put it through my pavilion like this and make sure I keep my man in there, or maybe I move my man back just past my clipping plane or something. Okay. The clipping plane, when you click on it and go to properties, it will show you which views that clipping plane is active in. So if I collapse this back down so I can see my right, my front, and my top, it looks to me like probably I want my right viewport to be the one that I use as a section rather than my front viewport. And in order to get things right, I'm going to isolate just the thing that I just made. And I can move the clipping plane left and right, and it doesn't change how deep it's going. So I can get it out the way. And there is my section. I've cut through the model. I've isolated just the bits I want. And I've opened up my right viewport. Nice and simple. Let's select all of that stuff. And I'll just type make 2D. Happy with this so far? Make 2D. You've got a whole load of options here, but probably we're going to be wanting the view from right because that's the one we're looking at. Or for you, it might be front if that's better. Oh, okay. Sorry. I selected the stuff I wanted to make into a drawing and I typed make 2D. How do I make the clipping plane go away? I just moved it to the side. Do you see, if I move it to the side, it still clips everything, but I just don't see it anymore.
How did you make it vertical?
I just used the gumball.
Oh,
I flipped it up on its edge. Make 2D. And we'll call this make 2D section. I just click OK. And it makes you a whole load of cool layers. And I'm going really fast now because I've got a tutorial in 2 minutes now rather than 5. But do you see that it's now made me this lovely drawing of people, default surfaces, and then clipping plane intersections. And these clipping plane intersections are going to be your thick lines. Cut lines are thick and other lines are really thin. And so what I can do is down here, I've got a little plus button. And I can choose new layout. Are you with me, Olivia? I assume so.
Yeah, sorry, I thought you could see me nodding.
No, oh, sorry, I couldn't see your head. And I can call this page whatever I want. Maybe I'll call this section. And it's going to be a printer Rhino PDF. And the size is going to be A1 because I know it's going to be 1 to 20. So it'll fit nicely on an A1. Landscape probably. And use the initial detail count of 0 because I want to show you how to put details onto a page. Now you see you've got your 4 views, but you've got a new one down here called section. Just made a new one. And this section is a piece of paper. It's a layout. And that piece of paper is what you're going to print on. Drafting is a tab along here, just after mesh tools and render tools. Drafting has an option which is plus and a piece of paper, and it adds a detail view to your layout. So I'll click that, and I'll draw a rectangle on the page. Am I going a bit fast for anyone? Drafting is standard C planes, blah, 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 all the way to the end, and it's called drafting. Yeah. Now, this is exactly the same as CAD. You know, in CAD, when you're in the layout view, you can go to model space or paper space. The moment we're in paper space, to go to model space, double click, and it goes gray. And then I can zoom. Zoom, 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 find my make 2D that I just put down, double click outside, and go back to paper space. However, zoom, zoom, zoom with your scroll wheel is not the same as setting the scale. So what I do is I click on the detail view and go to properties, and I can set the scale here. And I want mine to be 1 to 20. Yep, I can very happily. I double click to go into model view within my detail. Double click outside to go back to paper space. If I click once on the frame, the detail view frame, and then go to properties, which is this color wheel, I can set the scale 1 to 20. And then I can grab one of these little guys and extend him out.
You know,
Yeah.
in CAD, you can do UCS, and
Sorry, say that one more time. You dropped out for a second.
you know, in CAD, and you can do UCS, and then you can literally change your view. So say, I don't know why I would have something drawn upside down, but let's say I had something drawn upside down. Can I?
Yep.
change it in
Yeah.
the-
So when you double click to go into your model view, you can set the scale here 1 to 20. You could set it within your model view in model space, and you can also rotate 90 degrees.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Some people do like doing that. They draw their elevations like left, right, up, down, and then they rotate their detail views. You can do that in Rhino as well, but I tend to like doing it this way. Now, here's the cool bit. I've got 1 minute to my tutorial. Now, the thing that I would suggest you do with 1 minute to your tutorial is print this out and scribble over it. because you can add thickness, you can add structure in much faster than you can modeling it in Rhino. But you can also add line weights. And if I extend out my layers panel here, you might be familiar with this kind of view from CAD, that you set a color for each layer, and then the print color can be different to the layer color. So I'm going to set my surface to be black. And then if I go to print preview, that will change to be black. Similarly, you see here, this line didn't change. Well, that's because that's cut through the surface. So I can change that to be a nice black. And I can change that to be a nice thick line. There, nice thick one. This one, nice thick line. These guys here. Be nice and thin. And suddenly I've got line thickness in my drawing. And I've cut through the ground plane as well because I put a surface there. And it's difficult to see, but that line is thicker than that line. Similarly, I suppose construction curves, well, we could even turn them off, or we could change them to be like a light gray color or something. And suddenly that's starting to look a little bit like an architectural drawing. We could print that out. We can scribble over it with some sense of structure, some sense of architecture, some sense of inhabitation, and it'll take you the last 30 seconds before your tutorial. And that was 7 minutes, wasn't it? So we've gone from model to drawing, 5, 6, 7 minutes. Did everyone follow what I did, or do you want me to go back through any part of that again? The line weight. Oh yeah, great. Okay. So do you see when I did make 2D, it gave me all these layers. I'll show you why. This guy here, you select it. Should we do a perspective section? How cool is that? Look at that. Do you see? It's a perspective section because the clipping plane is cut it, but we're using a perspective camera. So I'll set my camera up just because I might want to come back to it.
Sorry, how do you get from the perspective model?
Along the bottom, you're in paper space here.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, when you set your scale, top tip, lock it. Because otherwise you'll go in and then you'll lose the scale and then it's really annoying. Okay. Here we go. I'm going to set my view. This is just for my own sanity. We'll call it perspective section. Okay. Here's my view. Perspective section. I'll select all that stuff and I type make 2D. One of the options that you have in object properties is maintain source layers. When you click that, it'll give you all the sub layers underneath your make 2D, where everything that you have going into the make 2D will come out with the right colors and the right layers and the right properties. You can even include hidden lines. So that'll show you lines that are hidden behind another thing, but you could render them as dotted lines if you wanted to. Personally, I tend to find that makes your model quite messy, but I mean, you can play with it. You can turn them off later as well, once you've got them. Once that's finished, that's produced for you this lovely thing here. Oh, that's quite nice actually, isn't it? Yeah. And it's also made you, because we gave it a name, it's made you a whole load of layers down here, which are really, really useful. And those layers are then what you set the print color and the print width on. So let's make a new layout. I'll just go through it one more time. Call it page 2. It'll be A1, it'll be landscape. I'm going to cheat and put an initial detail count of 1. So it puts 1 detail in without me having to drag it in. Double click, let's zoom in. And we'll set the scale there 1 to 20. And we'll lock it. Well, I won't lock it yet because I'll put it sort of like that. There we go. Now we'll lock it. There we go. And drop down, turn print preview on, otherwise you won't be able to see what you're changing. And all of these things are currently hidden curves. So do you see here, we've got hidden curves and then sub layers. And then you've got visible curves and then sub layers. So if you want to turn all the hidden lines off, you can just do that. And you see all the dotted lines disappear. But maybe you want to keep the dotted lines. Maybe they're cool. Maybe they make it look like you've done more work than you actually have. Then probably everything's going to probably become a little bit more black and white. And similarly, this guy here, it's going to be dark. And then the clipping plane intersections are going to be your cut lines. And that means that everything underneath there, we can set as having a nice thick. Let's go super thick. And we should even be able to start to see it. There you go. And this, when you've got a much more complicated model, this is going to start to look really cool. The more careful you model it, the nicer your model is that you get out. But like I say, it's not the end. You don't start with a model and then just cut it and then you've got your final drawing. For your final image, you might want to then take these lines into your another file and then really work into it. Make sense? Even the man's come out quite nicely. That's quite good, isn't it? Here's another cool thing. Page 2. I'll show you this. I mean, I'll just show you this as something that you could do, okay? We saved that named view, didn't we? We've absolutely got it saved. So we can put the camera exactly there and we know exactly where it's going to be. And the camera lens length and all the stuff is going to be right. Let's type print. We'll print this layout into a PDF. And it's going to be A1. And it's going to be scale 1:1 because the paper scale is 1:1 with the paper scale that we want to output. And I'll click print and it'll make me a PDF. Remember, I like to put all my PDFs in a folder called PDFs. So I'm going to call it Digital Workshop 2 Perspective Section. Right, and that's got my PDF with all my line weights and all the stuff. Then let's come back to here. Maybe I've fiddled about with some stuff. I go back to my named view, double click there, that loads it up. Let's put the sun in a decent place. Choose midday or thereabouts. And then I can type view capture to file, set width and height of decent number of pixels, and I'll browse for somewhere. I'm going to put it in the PDFs folder and I'll tell you why in just a second. Perspective section shading. It saved that image. Oh, not photos, Photoshop. We've gone on a little bit, but I just want to show you this because I find this guy, PDFs, perspective shading. I'm just going to, no, not do that. I'm going to make him black and white. Duplicate the background layer. And turn the opacity down a little bit. And also let's make a solid white color as a background. Oh, come here. There we go. Now, with a little bit of judicious figuring out. I mean, you're going to spend a little bit more time on this than me, but you get the idea. This is the start of something of a hybrid drawing between lines and shading. And I haven't had to do any rendering. There's no V-Ray, there's no flamingo, there's no nothing. It's just screenshot, photoshopped in with line weights. And then suddenly, oh, you know, I've got a sense there of what I can be doing. This is a really nice thing to then print out and sketch over, because you've got that sense of depth that you wouldn't have before. Happy with that? That's all within your toolkit now. So the question is, this week and today, for the rest of the day, the idea is Ricardo and I will come around and chat to you all sort of one-to-one, basically, about how the project's going. What I think I would encourage you to be doing is team up with some people around you and start to see if you can model the site and your proposal in 3D. If you've got a model, you've already got a really good understanding of how that fits together. And also switch the sun on, start playing with some stuff, start iterating on your designs. If by the end of the day, you've reached incremental save number 20 of different versions of your design, then brilliant. If you've got 30 different layers with option 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, brilliant. Just keep on going. And I'd also encourage you that at this point, print something out like in the first 10 minutes and scribble on it. Don't get bogged down in Rhino. Do we think we've got enough maybe behind us now to kind of start modeling stuff in 3D?
Just how the landscape, how should you go through it? Is it like just drawing up lines?
Well, there's a few different ways of doing it. For me personally, I think what you're going to find the best is to start with section cuts through the landscape that you've probably already got sketches of. So if I have a look at this, I'm just going to hide all of this stuff. Apart from the people, I want to show the people. Everything other than the people. Okay, here are my people. You've probably got a sketch already that sort of looks, and I'm generalizing a lot, but sort of looks like that or something, doesn't it? Right? And you've got some sense of how tall that gap is. You've got some sense of like where it goes. If you want to turn that into 3D, it's really, really simple. I'm just going to switch back to ghosted. Really simple is you just extrude that curve for a while. Yeah. And that gives you enough to start building something on. That's a really simple way of doing it. The other way of doing it is what you might find is you've got this section cut over here, and then you know that this section cut over here actually sort of comes up a little bit more like this. I'm breaking my own rules. I've got slightly too many construction points on this curve, but you get what I mean. And maybe you've got another point over here where it really starts to kind of flatten out, and like these two come down a little bit. And then obviously the way you're going to deal with that is you've already got the tool for that, haven't you? And there's your surface.
The command was extrude, right?
So so I lofted between these curves. So if you've got section cuts of your site, you loft between them. Or if you don't have that and all you've got is a 2D sense, then you can just extrude it and start building on that. I think I've said this before, we're architects, not surveyors. So no one's going to care that your site is 10 centimeters out with the real world. In the real world, you'd get given a topo from somebody, you know. The other way of doing it, and this is the way that I built this site. You might have seen this one. These are literally points that I know the height of from GPS data. And so I made, I mean, this took me a long time. I don't recommend you do it. But if you've got a whole load of points, actually, I'll. Yeah. Well, so then this guy here is your friend. It's a surface from 3 or 4 corner points. So what you can do is you can make a little surface that matches the points that you have. And it'll be a bit jaggedy, but that's okay because, you know, you're cutting through things with the lines can be a bit jaggedy and you can still get a sense of how it's going, or you can smooth it out later. So that makes sense. Like if you've got points, you can start to build up this network of patches using the points. And you could use the point cloud to do that as well. Because if you turn on point snap, you can snap your 4-point surfaces to the points you already have and start building up like a patchwork of surfaces. And then when you're done and you're happy, go back to here. They're all separate surfaces, but you just click join and now they're one. Well, there's a few different ways you could do it, but the easiest way that I think I could think of as to do it would be to do exactly what I've just done with these lines. Let me just put points on. Oh, I can't do it. Hang on. Yeah, because I joined them together. There we go. Now I've got this. Points on. So let's say, you know, you've got this funny surface that's undulating about, but it's a bit jaggedy, like you were saying. Yeah. Once you've got a cut through, well, you could use a clipping plane to cut through, and you'll get a line that goes do, do, do. Yeah. But then you could smooth that out by making a curve with those control points rather than do, do, do. It goes. Once you've got a series of curves, you can loft them together, and you've got a smooth surface. Yeah. So I'm sorry, it might take you a little while, but probably no more than 20 minutes, half an hour. You just put your clipping plane through and draw a curve, put your clipping plane through, draw a curve, put your clipping plane through, 3 curves, loft together, beautiful smooth surface. But don't get hung up on smoothness. Like the smoothness thing doesn't matter. Real world isn't smooth. So you don't have to be in Rhino. Does that help?
Chris.
Yep.
Why does my page look horrible and grey, and yours look nice and white? And how do I change it?
What, your page 2? This one?
Yeah.
Okay. This will be the last thing I show you. Properties. Where is it? Appearance. Colors.
Okay.
And then you're looking for layout and change it to white. Does that help, Olivia?
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I forget that I changed things to look really good, but not everyone has the same defaults. At some point, we'll also talk about setting up your own view modes. So you've got these to choose from, and maybe you like artistic, for example, but you don't like the horrible, like mottled background. Well, I've made artistic white, which is artistic, but has a white background rather than a dark background. You can change that in the properties menu. I just Google it. It's easy to do. And once you've got your own view modes, you can do cool things. Like, I think I've got one that's like green pen or something. It's like a, I don't know, I made one for a video that made it look like it was made on like an MS-DOS computer or something, because you can change the colors of everything to green if you wanted to. Cool. There you go. Ricardo's here. I feel like we probably need just a breather, just to digest. I'm going to stop the recording and share that with you this week. Was the recording helpful last week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did most people find themselves going back to it and practicing things again? Practice is key. Just keep going. And there's a lot in this week that's kind of a bit more theoretical. And I think what you'll find is you'll need to apply it to your own models and as you go. But we'll be coming around and helping today as well. I think I want to get you going with this idea of like, you've got a 3D model on the go, you've got a physical model on the go, you've got sketches on the go, you've got drawings on the go, and that's okay. You're not all in one thing and everything's a hybrid. Cool.
Yeah.